Hi everybody, I'm Mrs. Dare and this is my daughter Anne Berlin, and today we are going to read one of her favorite stories, Extra Yarn by Mac Burnett. On a cold afternoon in a cold little town where everywhere you looked was either the white of snow or the black of soot from chimneys, Annabelle found a box filled with yarn of every color. And so she went home and knit herself a sweater. And when Annabelle was done, she had some extra yarn. And so she knit a sweater for Mars too. But still, there was extra yarn. And when Annabelle and Mars went for a walk, Nate pointed and laughed and said, "You two look ridiculous." "You are just jealous," said Annabelle. "No, I'm not," said Nate. But it turned out that he was. And even after she'd made a sweater for Nate and his dog and for herself and for Mars, she still had extra yarn. At school, Annabelle's classmates could not stop talking about her sweater. "Quiet," shouted Mr. Norman. "Quiet, everyone. Annabelle, that sweater of yours is a terrible distraction. I cannot teach with everyone turning around to look at you." "Well, then I'll knit one for everyone," said Annabelle, "so they won't have to turn around." "Well, that's impossible," said Mr. Norman. "You can't do that." But it turned out that she could, and so she did. Even a sweater for Mr. Norman. And when she was done, Annabelle still had extra yarn. And so she knit sweaters for her mom and her dad, and for Mr. Pendleton and Mrs. Pendleton, for Dr. Palmer, and for little Louie. She made sweaters for everyone except Mr. Crabtree, who never wore sweaters or even long pants, and who would stand in his shorts with the snow all the way up to his knees. "No sweater for me, please," said Mr. Crabtree. And so she made Mr. Crabtree a hat. And even then, Annabelle still had extra yarn. She made sweaters for all the dogs and all the cats and for the other animals too. And soon, people thought, soon Annabelle will run out of yarn. But it turned out that she didn't. And so Annabelle made sweaters for things that didn't even wear sweaters. And things began to change in that little town. News spread of this remarkable girl who never ran out of yarn, and people came to visit from all around the world to see all the sweaters and to shake Annabelle's hands. And one day, an archduke, who was very fond of clothes, sailed across the sea and demanded to see Annabelle. "Little girl," said the Archduke, "I would like to buy that miraculous box of yarn, and I'm willing to offer you $1 million. "No, thank you," said Annabelle, who was knitting a sweater for a pickup truck. The Archduke's mustache twitched. $2 million, he said. Annabelle just shook her head. "No, thank you." $10 million, shouted the Archduke. "Take it or leave it." "I'll leave it," said Annabelle. "I will not sell my yarn." And she didn't. And so that night, the Archduke hired 3 robbers to break into Annabelle's house. And so they stole the box and took it to the Archduke, who set off across the snow and sailed over the sea and back to his castle. And the Archduke put on his favorite song and sat in his very best chair, and then he took out the box, and he lifted its lid, and he looked inside. And it was empty. His mustache quivered, it shivered, it trembled. The Archduke hurled the box out the window and shouted, "Little girl, I curse you with my family's curse. You will never be happy again. But the box sailed all the way back across the sea, back to Annabelle. It turned out that she was. The end.